The sound of wedding bells rang through the air, their sweet melody filling the church with joy. Guests were swept up in the celebration, unaware of the storm brewing just a few feet away. Darius Whitfield, the man they all knew and admired, stood beside Shanice Carter, his radiant bride-to-be. It was meant to be the perfect day, the beginning of their forever. But in the midst of vows and promises, a single scream shattered the celebration. 5 gunshots echoed through the sanctuary, followed by chaos. The bride and groom collapsed, blood soaking the pristine white linens beneath them. As the guests scattered in terror, one woman stood motionless in the center of it all, Ayana Monroe, Darius' former fiancée. "It was supposed to be me," she whispered, her broken heart twisting the words into something chilling. How had it come to this? To understand how one woman's obsession turned deadly, we must go back to a time when Ayana and Darius were inseparable. For 6 years, Darius had promised her forever. She had been his rock, his anchor through triumphs and failures. But just months before his wedding to Shanice, Darius looked her in the eyes and said, "I need to grow." In that moment, Ayana's world crumbled. She thought they were building a life together, but suddenly she was no longer part of the picture. As Darius' new love story blossomed before her eyes, Ayana's heartbreak twisted into obsession. The woman who had once been his everything could not let go. What should have marked the start of Darius and Shanice's journey together instead became the tragic end of Ayana's. Stay with us as we explore the dark road that led to this deadly moment. Ayana Monroe was never the type to fade quietly into the background. At 29, she worked as a speech therapist in Atlanta, driven, ambitious, and strikingly beautiful. But beneath the surface lived a storm few ever saw. For 6 years, she had been at the center of Darius Whitfield's world. They met in college, bonding over late-night study sessions, shared laughter, and a love for adventure. He was a charismatic former basketball player chasing big dreams, and she was a woman who believed in him completely. Their love felt like a fairy tale. Marriage, children, a lifetime together, that was a plan. But everything unraveled in the summer of 2023. For months before his wedding to Shanice, Ayana's world split apart. One evening at their favorite coffee shop, Darius looked at her with familiar eyes, eyes that once brimmed with promises. But that day, they seemed distant. "I need to grow," he said quietly. "I can't do this anymore." Ayana sat frozen, her heart plummeting. She thought the conversation would be about something trivial, maybe work stress or a minor disagreement. But this was different. He wasn't asking for space. He was leaving. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What do you mean by grow?" He shifted uncomfortably, refusing to meet her gaze. "I mean, I need to figure out who I am. I can't do that with you. I'm not the man I want to be yet." Her world shattered into jagged pieces, each fragment cutting deeper than the last. They had plans, a future, but in the span of a few words, everything dissolved. "I didn't know you met with somebody else," she murmured, her tears barely held back. Later, the truth would hit her like a cruel blow. There was someone else, Shanice Carter, with her radiant smile and entrepreneurial spirit. Shanice, who had built a thriving skincare brand and captured Darius' heart just months after the breakup. Ayana hadn't seen it coming. The wound was still raw when she learned he had already moved on. She tried therapy at first, hoping it would help, but each session only deepened the cracks in her carefully built facade. After a few weeks, she stopped going. The answers she needed weren't there. Instead, she turned inward. Ayana began keeping a journal. Pages filled with angry poetry, desperate questions, and unfiltered emotions. Some entries offered release, but others pulled her deeper into bitterness. "I gave him everything," she scrawled one night, pressing her pen into the paper until it nearly tore. "And she gets my ring. What makes her worthy?" Her friends urged her to move on. "You've got to let that man go," one told her, concern lacing her voice. "He's not gone. He's just lost," Ayana replied, her eyes unfocused, as if speaking to herself. Slowly, her fixation grew. Late at night, she scrolled through Instagram, lingering on photos of Darius and Shanice. Smiling, traveling, living the life she believed should have been hers. How is she wearing my ring? She thought bitterly, each picture making her chest tighten. The images tormented her. Every smile, every glance Shanice gave Darius, deepened the wound. Ayana imagined herself in Shanice's place, in his home, in his bed. The thought consumed her. Wine dulled the edges of her pain, but only temporarily. Alone in her apartment, surrounded by suffocating silence, she poured glass after glass, her thoughts spiraling darker each night. Her obsession escalated. A fake Instagram account soon followed, allowing her to watch Shanice undetected. At first, it was harmless scrolling. But soon she wanted more. Details of where they were, what they were doing, who they were with. Then she saw it, the wedding invitation. Posted online, Shanice's manicured hands holding it proudly. Join us for the wedding of a lifetime. Ayana's fingers shook as she copied the details. The venue, the date, everything. A chill of dread mixed with a surge of determination. The idea of them exchanging vows was unbearable. And yet, some part of her felt closer than ever before. Her obsession didn't stop there. Ayana needed to feel connected to Darius, even if only for fleeting moments. So, she took a risk. She began sending herself gifts in his name, lavish bouquets, dainty trinkets, even expensive jewelry. She'd open each package and imagine his presence, pretending he still cared. But within days, she would return them. Keeping them felt like lying to herself, like pretending they were still together, pretending nothing had changed. And with every return, a piece of her slipped deeper into the illusion she was building. Her friends noticed a shift. They saw her pulling away, her spirit dimming. "Aya, you gotta let that man go," one urged, her voice tight with concern. "He's not yours anymore." But Ayana didn't listen, not to her friends, not anyone. Their advice rolled off her like rain against glass. "He's not gone. He's just lost," she snapped one evening, her eyes cold and far away. Her friends exchanged uneasy looks, but she brushed them off. It wasn't just about Darius anymore. It was about proving something to herself. She wasn't the one who had failed. She wasn't the one who gave up. He was the one who had chosen to walk away. Her thoughts grew darker, more consuming. Every hour was a fight to resist calling him, running to him, begging him to reconsider. She knew it would never work. He had made his choice. A week before the wedding, Ayana made one of her own. She was done sitting idly by, waiting for closure that would never come. She drove to New Orleans, the city where she and Darius once dreamed of building a future together. The streets, once familiar, now felt foreign, territory she was determined to reclaim. When she arrived, her pulse raced with grim resolve. She knew exactly what she intended to do. No more watching from the sidelines. She would make Darius remember her, make him see what they had built together. She would take back what was hers. She stopped at a gun shop on the edge of the city. The man behind the counter barely glanced at her as she walked in. "I'm here to buy a gun," she said, her voice calm, too calm. The clerk studied her ID, then nodded, treating it like any ordinary sale. Ayana handed over cash, the weight of the weapon chilling in her hand as she slipped it into her bag. There was no hesitation. She had crossed a line. There was no turning back. Later that night, alone in her hotel room, she sat on the bed with her journal. Her pen flew across the pages, handwriting jagged and urgent. "He'll remember me. They'll all remember me." The words pulsed with power, like she was finally taking control of her story. She was no longer the woman discarded, forgotten, replaced. She was someone who would force the world to remember. She would make Darius remember the love they once shared, and make Shanice regret ever stealing it away. Her obsession had transformed into something darker, no longer just grief, but a mission. And no one, she vowed, was going to stop her. The morning of the wedding was everything Shanice had dreamed of. The sun spilled golden light through the towering oaks. Fresh flowers perfumed the air, and a gentle hum of excitement carried across the venue. Guests laughed. Glasses clinked. Satin gowns rustled as anticipation filled the garden. In the bridal suite, Shanice stood before a tall mirror, her heart pounding with joy and nerves. She could hardly believe it. This was her day. In moments, she would walk down the aisle to Darius, the man she loved more than life itself. Her gown fit like a dream, delicate lace hugging her frame with elegance. She reached toward a small table where a folded note waited, a note from Darius, written the night before. "Let's dance through life together forever." Her eyes misted with tears as she tucked the note into her dress, love swelling in her chest. This was the beginning of their forever. Outside, guests filled the seats among lush greenery and towering floral arrangements. The pastor welcomed them warmly before leading a prayer, blessing the union of Darius Whitfield and Shanice Carter. But while the garden brimmed with joy, one person wasn't there to celebrate. Ayana Monroe, disguised, sat quietly at the back. Her wig matched one of Shanice's favorite hairstyles. Her dark sunglasses concealed her eyes, and her RSVP had been submitted under a false name. She had taken every precaution. Today, no one would recognize her. As the ceremony began, Ayana's pulse thundered. She was so close. Darius was so close. Shanice's voice rang steady as she recited her vows, her eyes locked with his, her smile radiant. "I promise to love you, to support you, and to stand with you through every storm and every sunshine." Darius' gaze softened, full of devotion. Ayana's chest clenched. She wanted to scream, to rip Shanice away from him, but she sat frozen, her hands balled tightly in her lap, each vow cutting like a blade. Then, as Darius prepared to speak his own, Ayana rose. At first, no one noticed. The soft music still floated. The pastor's voice still carried. But the scrape of her chair against the floor broke the spell. Heads turned. Ayana stood trembling. A cold smile stretched across her face as her hand closed around a gun hidden beneath her jacket. The crowd gasped. For a heartbeat, silence held. Then came the scream. 5 gunshots ripped through the garden like thunder. Guests shrieked, scattering in terror, some hitting the ground, others running for the exits. Darius jerked as the bullet struck, Shanice's eyes widening in shock as she crumpled into his arms, her pristine gown blooming red. Time slowed around Ayana. The chaos, the screams, the desperate cries, they all blurred. Her eyes locked on the fallen couple, her breathing ragged, the weapon still in her trembling hands. "It was supposed to be me," she whispered, her voice hollow, empty. The wedding of joy had become a nightmare of blood and broken vows. And at the center stood Ayana Monroe, lost, consumed, and unrecognizable even to herself. The police arrived shortly after, sirens cutting through the chaos like a blade. Officers rushed in, barking commands as they tried to bring order to the scene. Their focus locked on Ayana, who stood frozen, her eyes never leaving the couple she had destroyed. They didn't need to ask her anything. Her silence told them everything. She made no attempt to resist, her body rigid, her face distant, as if her spirit had already drifted elsewhere. When the officers restrained her, Ayana didn't fight. She didn't even blink. There was no emotion, only an eerie calm that unsettled everyone watching. Suddenly, Darius' mother forced her way through the crowd. Her eyes locked on Ayana, and a scream tore from her throat, sharp with grief and rage. "You wicked woman!" she cried, trembling as she pointed at her. "I warned him about you. I told him you were nothing but trouble." Her words slashed through the air like glass. Gasps followed as the grieving mother collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. She had tried to shield her son from Ayana, but no one had been able to stop what was coming. As the officers led Ayana away, she whispered something faintly under her breath, her voice low yet chilling. "I gave them eternity," she said. The phrase lingered, echoing in the minds of all who heard it. She wasn't just excusing the murders. She believed she had gifted them something. Eternity together, even if it cost them their lives. The once joyous wedding had transformed into a crime scene. In seconds, a love story had become a murder mystery. The investigation began almost immediately. Detectives tore through every detail of Ayana's life, searching for answers to how someone so seemingly ordinary could commit such horror. The first breakthrough came from Ayana's hidden journals. Stored on her laptop, the entries were filled with anger and sorrow that spiraled into delusion. The more detectives read, the clearer it became how far gone she truly was. Page after page raged about betrayal, Claims that Darius had wronged her, that Shanice had stolen what was rightfully hers. Her writings grew darker with time, obsession pouring into every word. One entry stood out. "They'll see. They'll all remember me. He was mine first. I'll take back what's mine." Former friends added to the chilling picture. Many recalled Ayana ranting about crashing the wedding weeks before. They had dismissed it as bitterness. But in hindsight, it was clear she had meant every word. She kept saying she couldn't let him go, one ex-friend admitted, shuddering at the memory. Her therapist shed further light, revealing a history of abandonment trauma that Ayana never recovered from. Losing Darius reignited those wounds. Her attachment wasn't healthy, the therapist explained. When he left, it triggered every fear and insecurity she carried from childhood. This wasn't just heartbreak. It was her reliving every abandonment she'd ever felt. As detectives pieced together her past, they uncovered the chilling extent of her planning. Ayana's disguise had been carefully crafted. Wig, sunglasses, even a forged RSVP. She blended into the crowd, unnoticed until it was too late. The gun she used had been purchased out of state, in a private transaction far from New Orleans. She left no trace, taking every step to hide her tracks. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. It was premeditated, cold, calculated, driven by obsession that had finally consumed her. 6 months later, Ayana Monroe stood in a courtroom, her face a mask of emptiness. The trial drew national attention, the weight of the tragedy pressing down on every person present. Her defense pled insanity, claiming years of trauma and rejection had fractured her mind. She wasn't in her right state. Her attorney argued softly. This wasn't murder. This was a mind unraveling. She snapped. But the prosecution told a harsher story. They described Ayana as methodical, deliberate. They pointed to her journals, her disguise, the carefully purchased weapon, and her relentless obsession. She chose this. The prosecutor declared coldly. She rehearsed this. This wasn't madness. It was revenge. Friends testified, recalling her fixation and her repeated threats about ruining the wedding. The jury saw the pattern, not chaos, but intent. The verdict came swiftly guilty. 2 counts of murder, life without parole. Ayana didn't flinch as the words fell. Her expression remained frozen, the same unsettling calm she carried on the day of the murders. In the gallery, Shanice's mother broke into uncontrollable sobs, her voice cracking with pain. "She didn't just take my daughter," she wept. "She killed every tomorrow we had left, every smile, every memory gone." Her grief was shared by everyone in the courtroom. Darius and Shanice were gone forever, their future stolen in an instant. Justice had been served, but no sentence could ever bring them back. Ayana's eyes stayed fixed forward as the courtroom emptied, her silence haunting in its finality. A woman trapped in the prison of her own mind, her life forever defined by the choices she made in the shadows of obsession. Love is one of the most powerful forces we know. When it's pure, it can bring peace, strength, and joy. But what happens when that same love twists into something darker? When the very thing meant to lift us higher tears us apart? Ayana Monroe once loved Darius Whitfield deeply, passionately. But what happens when love turns into obsession? When it clouds reason, distorts truth, and consumes every thought? Can we still call it love at that point? Or has it become something else entirely? Darius chose to end their relationship. Was he wrong for doing so? Was it unfair to want to move on with Shanice Carter so quickly? How many of us know the sting of heartbreak, that raw ache of being left behind? But what separates those who heal from those who spiral into anger, envy, and obsession? In the end, Darius and Shanice's love story was stolen, not only by Ayana's actions, but also by the shadows of obsession lurking behind her broken heart. And Shanice's mother lost more than just a daughter. She lost every tomorrow, every memory that should have been made. Was it inevitable? Could this tragedy ever been stopped? Or was it always a ticking time bomb, waiting for the right spark to explode? What do you think? Can love truly morph into something destructive? Have you ever let heartbreak consume you? In the end, there were no vows, no promises, only silence, only loss. If you're drawn to stories like this, where love, betrayal, and obsession collide, be sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.